Hey everyone, welcome to Locked On Lakers for Tuesday. Brian Kamenetsky, Andy Kamenetsky. The Lakers play horribly in Detroit. They lose and show some real vulnerabilities. That's next.
You are Locked On Lakers, your daily Los Angeles Lakers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks to everybody for making Locked On Lakers first listen of every day, Monday through Friday. No matter how or where you get your podcasts, this one's always free, never behind paywall. Locked On Lakers on YouTube is where almost 26,000 subscribers, Andy, are all wondering what went wrong Monday night in Detroit. It was a very ugly effort for the Lakers. One I thought that not only showed some maybe problems with their focus, perhaps, but also some issues, again, with the roster. And certainly some of their vulnerabilities to a certain style of play. So we'll get to all that in a moment. Do want to let everybody know that today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. So 115-103 was the final. The only lead the Lakers had, I believe, was 3-0 at the beginning of the game. And they played from behind the entire time. Got as close, I believe they got within 6, I think was as close as they got, maybe 5. But Detroit controlled this game throughout, and the Lakers, quite frankly, deserved to lose.
100%. And I know we're going to get into the vulnerabilities of the roster. I can say right now, one of the things off the top of my head is this is a game that I think really illustrated where Jared Vanderbilt is missed. Where a multitude of wing defenders, particularly guys who can check guards, were very much missed. But overarching, the thing that bothered me the most in this game was the complacency with which the Lakers treated it from the outset. They spent the first half of this game, quite frankly, mailing it in and looking like they did not want to be there at all and that they didn't feel like playing the game.
I think that's fair.
And I know we're going to get into some of the larger overarching questions or themes or messages or whatever that came from about halfway through the second quarter, JJ Redick putting Cam Reddish into the game. And for what it's worth, I thought Cam actually had a really good effect on the game overall. But I think a lot of what got Cam in there in the first place before Redick clearly liked how he was playing was basically just the idea of, if you all don't give a bleep, I'm going to put in someone that I know at least will care.
Yeah.
And I know I'm going to put in somebody that's not going to take their minutes for granted. And that was Reddish tonight.
The motor, the speed at which he was moving was just faster than everybody else's. And
I'll give I think AD in the first half played with the proper speed.
AD was, I'm not, right. And I think,
just to clarify,
right?
AD was one of the few non-Cam Reddish people that in the first half I thought consistently played with the focus and energy that was needed. Everyone else I thought was somewhere between vacillating and not there.
I think LeBron, for example, was, he was statistically fairly productive both in the game and in the first half. And I guess comparatively was playing well compared to some of his teammates, but he was guilty. I think it was in the third quarter, fourth quarter. Lakers are getting, this is when they had gotten into within 6. Detroit scores, they come back down, and LeBron throws one of the worst passes I've seen him throw. It's a very lazy pass sort of towards Reddish, who was, I believe it was Reddish, who was surprised though I think the ball was coming to him, but it was also, and he didn't come to it, but it was thrown so nonchalantly, led to a turnover. And Detroit goes and pushes, I think it was Cade Cunningham got the steal, pushes it back out to 10. And, the first half, the Lakers weren't guarding the 3-point line. Their shot selection was spotty. It looked, other than plays that sort of centered around AD, anytime it wasn't, it looked like 5 individuals playing 5 different basketball games. I texted you during the game, like D'Angelo Russell, some of his passing was really good, spot on, good passing, setting up guys for baskets, got AD going in a different ways. His shot selection was atrocious in this game. Like the, when do I go, when do I not, read the room, have some sort of feel for where things are and when a shot should be taken was just awful. And people know I am a supporter of D'Angelo Russell, but he was really bad in that regard in this game. And when you're playing, the Lakers were hammered on the glass, just annihilated from moment one in this game. And when you are playing a game where it is a struggle to hold on to the ball, to get possessions and all these other things, so you're getting beaten up in transition by an explosive, if nothing else, young Pistons team, your radar as a veteran point guard about the flow of the game and where shots need to come in has to be light years better than what Russell was doing, I thought, especially in the first half on Monday. But it was just, the bench was wildly unproductive. The starters, aside from Anthony Davis and LeBron, again, statistically at least, wildly unproductive in that first half. And you go into the second half chasing, I think they were down 14 at the half. Like, okay, can you make up a 14-point lead against Detroit? You can, but you spot any NBA team that much on their home floor when you've made them feel good about themselves. And it's not going to be easy to get that win.
Well, especially too against a team like Detroit, that at the very least, they are going to be excited at the prospect of getting a win against the Lakers. Like that on their home court. That is something that is going to excite this team. They are playing with a different energy under JB Bickerstaff. Like it seems like they are, they are still a ways away from being a good team, but they are moving in the right direction, which doesn't mean I don't think the Lakers aren't still better than them. I do, but something I tweeted out during the game at Cam Brothers, at the risk of jumping to conclusions, no lessons were learned by the Lakers from the second half of the Raptors game, because they got up 25 in the first half versus Toronto and clearly started thinking ahead to their day off in Toronto and forgot to keep playing. And they ended up winning the game, but they allowed that game to be way more interesting. And also, too, in terms of what you were talking about with Detroit being able, wanting to play a certain way, they allowed the Raptors to get out in transition a lot, to attack the rim a lot. And that is the way where the Raptors can score and they can be successful. If you allow, I was just going to say, if you allow NBA teams an opening, particularly a team that has a reason to be hungry, like I don't care how much these guys are in the Cooper Flag sweepstakes, they'll get there on their own. They don't need to worry about tossing a game in those, bizarro standings to endanger Flag. They're going to compile enough losses as it is. They're going to want to take this sort of game. Like you and I have talked about before, it is not a BS narrative that other teams get geeked up to play the Lakers. Like this is true.
No, that's especially on the road when you go into their building. I will say this, as you talked about Redick giving Cam Reddish minutes that robbed is the wrong word, took from. Reddish only played 14 minutes in this game. By the way, part of the fallout of this is the NBA takes Tuesday off. The entire NBA takes Tuesday off for election day. That's their tradition. On election days, the league shuts down, encouraging people to go vote, which obviously we encourage everyone to do the same.
I hope the Lakers are more organized in their efforts to vote than they were on the court.
But even the 14 minutes for Reddish, and we'll talk about this next, it took minutes from Christie, it took minutes from Knecht, and it means that no starter played less than D'Lo's 33. So there, not only was it a costly loss because it's the Pistons, it's a costly loss because it put a lot of burden on the guys that you need over the course of the season. So I got a lot more to say about this one. I'm sure you do, and we'll do it next.
Locked On Lakers is brought to you by Built. If you're a renter, it can often feel like you're stuck in this loop of rent payments and just watching the money vanish into thin air. It's time to turn your rent game around and start earning serious rewards, and that's where Built Rewards comes in. Built is breaking ground as a neighborhood rewards program that hooks you up with points on your rent every month. Pay your rent and watch the Built points roll in. You can use the points to jet off on a dream vacation, put the points towards a flight or a hotel with 500 plus airlines, 700,000 plus hotels and properties. You could use it to book fitness studio classes, redeem them towards future rent payments. It's all designed to meet your lifestyle. You pay hassle-free through the Built Rewards app. The rent game has just got a massive upgrade. Built points have been consistently ranked the highest value point currency by the Points Guy and Bankrate. Earn points by paying rent right now when you go to joinbuilt.com/LockedOnNBA. That's JOINBILT.com/LockedOnNBA. Be sure to use our URUL so they know we sent you. Joinbuilt.com/LockedOnNBA to start earning points with your rent payments today. Locked On Lakers is brought to you by Game Time, the best concert I have ever seen in my life. George Clinton, Parliament Funkadelic, 1992. They played him in Hollywood. They played for 5 hours without a break. I'm not exaggerating. Also, big news, Eddie Murphy is going to be reuniting with his director of Dreamgirls to play George Clinton in a George Clinton biopic. I cannot wait to see this and relive this concert experience. And, think about the tickets that would have even been better had I gotten them through Game Time. These were actually not easy tickets for me to get. I wish Game Time had been around them, because I could have used features like Game Time Picks, which filters out all of the confusing, flowery verbiage and just shows you great seats, incredible deals. They save you time. They show you panoramic seat views before you buy, so you know exactly what the view to the stage will be like. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off.
Okay, so LeBron, you use 39 minutes for AD, who is clearly not physically well. He scored 30. He went for 37, 9, and 4 in this game, 11 of 14 from the free throw line. He was a -1 in a game the Lakers lost by 12. Gives you an idea of, they basically played even when he was on the floor. They did not when he wasn't. He is hobbled. The Lakers are putting way too much strain on him.
AD actually at one point was down on the court. The Lakers took a timeout. He was holding his foot or ankle area. Like, it was clear that he was like, I need a second. I need a second right now.
And he wouldn't come out of the game. But,
nope.
And I'm not sure if this has been updated yet, but AD is, averaging somewhere in the neighborhood of 32, 12, and 3. He's shooting well above 50%, all these things for the Lakers to be 4 and 3 in this situation, including, again, a costly loss on Monday now to Detroit is not a good sign. You would like them to have a little bit of, even with the schedule that they've played, to have a little bit, maybe one more win in here, certainly the game that they played tonight. So, you're piling up burden on the players that you're going to need. And, the common link between what happened in Toronto, what we saw with Detroit, you and I both think Austin Reeves and D'Angelo Russell are good basketball players. I mean, there's a long track record for both of them. But you add in Gabe Vincent and the Lakers rotation guards, the three of them that play the most, have got to be the least explosive, not bad, but least explosive group of rotation guards among good teams in the league. Like, you can really see the difference in explosiveness, not necessarily talent, but speed, athleticism, explosiveness when you look at those guys compared to other guards around the league. And when you're playing a team that's going to run you, when you're playing a team that's going to try to take advantage of that, it is a real vulnerability for the Lakers. There's no question.
I was talking before about the way that they missed Jared Vanderbilt in this game.
Mm-hmm.
And for a lot of this game, the Lakers began with Rui as the primary defender, starting possessions on Cade Cunningham, which I don't think I need to explain to our very smart, very perceptive, very loyal, very engaged audience why that is not ideal. Like, in a perfect world, you do not begin possessions with Rui Hachimura guarding Cade Cunningham in space at the top of the arc. But it's because Cunningham was too big and too strong and too explosive for Reeves and D'Lo. Like, it just was not an option. I think this was something JJ, I think, decided before the game even began. Like, Rui, I'm starting you on Cunningham. And, it leads to...
Yeah, it's hard. I mean, I couldn't tell if, they obviously the Lakers got stuck switching a couple times and whatever, but I couldn't quite tell. But yeah, he spent a lot of time on him, to say the least.
There were a lot of possessions where he began on him. It didn't even feel like a switch to me. It felt like he was just starting. Because here's the thing: if at some point, if that's not what you want, you
sure,
adjust.
yeah. And there were some, he was the Lakers. Reeves struggled with. Like, Cade Cunningham's a really good player.
Sure, but the Lakers collectively, all of their guards, I would say, with the exception of Cam Reddish, if you consider him a guard on this team, is kind of a small forward, but all of the guards on the Lakers tonight defensively were lacking. Like, they particularly in the first half, I thought all of them were problematic. And again, that leads to situations where you are either playing your starting small / power forward who is on his best day outside of certain matchups. You hope he's a defensive neutral on a team starting point guard, or throwing in somebody like Reddish, who'd been out of the rotation. And again, to his credit, Reddish, I think, made the most of those minutes.
He played with energy, which is what,
Well, he also, I thought, look, they got into
worked. He worked defensively. He played with energy.
They got back into the game with Reddish on the floor. Like, I actually think Reddish played well in this game. I'm not saying he made a campaign for starters minutes or, first all team defense consideration, but he's the only guy who finished in the positive in this game. He
was better than the other guys.
He was plus 10 in a game where the Lakers lost by 12, and he played 14 minutes. Like,
he was better than the other guys, and he made a positive contribution. I'm not trying to work around that. It's just I think it had less to do with Reddish specifically, and more to do with Reddish compared to what the other guys were doing. And I think, the energy.
And he also started out playing hard, and that made a big difference.
He kind of woke the group up a little bit. I just think, so much of their defensive execution, I think, was related to the lack of execution offensively. And I don't know what they are right now offensively. I know Redick is, they were been trying to emphasize the 3-point line, and not to the point of only shooting threes and ignoring what's going on in the paint, but they were both pretty bad from a volume standpoint. If your goal is to shoot a lot of threes, they didn't get up very many in this game. And I think they shot 36% on Monday, which is not world beating, but it's not atrocious either. But it does feel like they miss a lot of those sort of open threes. Your volume shooter in this game was Reeves. He was 3 for 10. AD was 0 for 4. D'Lo was 2 for 5 from 3, and then 2 of 9 from everywhere else. He was unusually bad inside the paint. There was no rhythm and flow to anything they were doing offensively, and that left them incredibly vulnerable on the other end to tilted floors and runouts and stuff like that. And you combine that with the fact that they weren't really playing all that hard at the beginning, it seemed like, and you get this.
Well, in terms of the lack of
good quarter, they had one really good offensive quarter. Second quarter, they put in some points, but they let in 34. So what's the point?
It felt like to me in that the lack of energy that they brought to this game, particularly in the first half, translated not just in visible hustle. It starts translating into how much discipline do you have and how much willingness do you have to run an offense and to go through your paces and to not just look to put up shots or not just look to go ISO or not just look for the easiest path of resistance, and to be willingness to do the work. And, if you're not willing to do that stuff, you can devolve into sloppy play. And that's what was going on. And again, I think in the second half, they were more determined at least to not allow for a loss, and they started playing harder. But again, if you give a team that wants to beat you a big enough opportunity to beat you, and you have certain matchup issues against them anyway, even if you're playing hard, you find yourself in a position where you toss what was considered the most winnable game by a long shot on this road trip.
Yeah, and I'm just pulling it up. And Alex Regla, our friend from Silver Screen and Roll, had a tweet talking before the game, noting that this was the type of game, despite it being the Pistons, that worried him because of the way that the Pistons play. And he said, yeah, I'm a little worried about how the Lakers match up with the Pistons guards, young legs tonight. Detroit has the 4th highest transition rate off misses. Los Angeles is allowing a staggering 42% transition rate off of misses in the league, a league worst mark, nearly 6% higher than the next closest team. So, good for Alex for identifying. And that's what they did. They ran them out off Lakers misses. And again, this is where I feel like the poor decision making by someone like Russell, who needs to be reliable in that way, really hurts them, because you're playing into the scouting report of the other team, into the strengths of the other team, and what they that's what the coaching staff has told the Lakers. These guys will get out and run. They will get out and run. So, as a 10-year veteran in the league, you got to know, I'm going to be careful with my shot selection.
Absolutely.
And he wasn't the only one, but he was, I think, a guy who stuck out in that way. Let's talk a little bit more about Redick and the choices that he made in this game and where they go now, with a tough trip-ending game in Memphis, one that could drop them back to 500 and 1-4 on the road if they don't figure out a way to win. So that's next.
Locked on Lakers is brought to you by FanDuel. Tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers can bet $5, just $5 in Abe Lincoln, and you get $150 back in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place, and this is really cool, just confirm the hunches, what your sense for the game. Let's just pretend you're watching a game and it feels like you are predicting everything before it happens. Every big touchdown pass, every big turnover, sack, a busted run. You can check out the latest stats and view live play-by-play and so much more on the same page where you place your bet. Confirm your hunches. Visit FanDuel.com to get started today. And again, you get $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Locked on Lakers is also brought to you by Hims. Your sex life is important and you want it to be spontaneous, but schedules get busy. You don't have time to go to a doctor's office to get treated for ED. And through Hims, you can get a personalized ED treatment without stepping foot outside your door. Hims is changing men's lifestyle by providing you with access to affordable sexual health treatments from the comfort of your couch. Hims provides access to a range of doctor-trusted ED treatments like chewable hard mints, Viagra, Cialis, and the generics for up to 95% cheaper. The process is 100% online, so there's no need for an uncomfortable doctor's visit. Just answer a series of questions on their site. A medical provider will determine your best option for treatment, and if prescribed, the medication ships directly to you. Discreet packaging for free. No insurance is needed. One low price covers everything from treatments to ongoing care. Start your free online visit today at hims.com/lockedon. That's HIMS.com/lockedon for your personalized ED treatment options. hims.com/lockedon. The products mentioned are chewable, compounded products that are not approved by or verified for safety and effectiveness by the FDA. Prescriptions require an online consultation with a healthcare provider who will determine if appropriate. Restrictions apply. See website for details and important safety.
from a sort of observational standpoint, we saw what happened in Detroit. It was on the heels of, I think, Redick's first big adjustment of the year, which was sort of changing the bench rotation, where D'Lo and AD play together, where Reeves and LeBron play together, kind of making those adjustments there. In terms of that, this was the next, I think, major coaching response to what he's seeing on the floor. And this is what he was seeing on the floor during a game, to say, not you go in the game. And it was, for those of us, which is basically everybody who watches the Lakers, trying to see how Redick reacts to stuff as a coach, was certainly an interesting moment.
Again, with putting Reddish into the game, and ultimately Reddish ended up taking all of both Max Christie and Dalton Knecht's minutes in the second half of the game.
Christie played 4 minutes overall. Knecht played 9.
And neither one of them played in the second half at all. And those minutes basically went to Reddish, or Reddish and a combination of other guys. Gabe Vincent got a little bit of run in the second half. But like I said before, I think there was an element of sending a message to the rest of the guys. Like, if you don't want to play hard, if you don't want to be invested in this game, I'll put in somebody that I'm confident will, at the very least, play hard and treat these minutes like an opportunity. Mm-hmm. But also, too, I think it speaks to some of the concerns that, we've talked about with the reserves in general, the lack of production offensively from Christie and Vincent combined. Knecht, to some degree, I'm going to give him a pass because he can only produce if he plays enough minutes.
Right. And he's played 6 NBA games.
Right. And
or 7, I should say.
I'm not even being critical necessarily of Redick not playing him in the second half, because they needed to get back. They needed stops in this game, and they needed to start getting their bleep together defensively before you even worry about putting points on the board. So I understand it. I'm saying more as an overarching, I brought this up, I believe, in Monday's show. I would like to see Knecht start getting more minutes, because I think if you're going to try to juice the second unit offensively, he's both the obvious and I think only option at the moment. But when it comes to Christie and Vincent, I think Redick is going to start considering whether or not Reddish is a better option for one or the other. I'm guessing for the time being, it would be Christie. And look, everydayers know I've been a big bullish proponent on Christie's potential, but he is not playing well enough to start the season. He was very bad in his 4 or 5 minutes tonight. He had a possession with like a turnover, and then the next trip down, he had a rushed shot. I mean, he was very bad. And it would not surprise me at all if during the Memphis game, Reddish got Christie's minutes. It would not surprise me. It wouldn't surprise me if he got Vincent's minutes either. But I think
it should be noted, Hayes struggled in this game too.
But Hayes is also the only option they have.
Right, I'm saying, but I just mean when you start to think about the shortcomings of the bench and like the issues that they had, he was in minus 12 in 9 minutes.
I just feel like if I'm Redick, I'm considering the idea of, okay, if I'm not getting anything offensively at all out of Vincent or Christie, and I have to start thinking about what they bring to the table defensively, or what the bench is going to be bringing to the table defensively, Cam is the biggest option of the three. He is, in certain scenarios, the best defensive option of the three. And I think JJ is going to start thinking about, at least, the idea of putting in this guy that clearly began the season not in the rotation at all. But if the other guys aren't bringing something, I don't blame Redick for going there.
We noted on Monday's show, like, part of the reason you have to win games like this is to stay above water, so that, the Lakers just signed Max Christie to a $32 million deal. The idea that you would start to bury him out of necessity or whatever it might be 7 games into a season because you're starting to fall behind, because there are cracks in there, because he's not, that's really problematic.
Yes,
and I think it's, they put a lot of faith in guys who have not played a lot of basketball. So a point that we've made, the everydayers have heard us make. Christie's in his third year. They signed a lot. Like, I think the belief in Christie has pushed past the things he's actually done on the floor. And while I know we had that long conversation about the Hollinger column that came out over the summer about like questionable contracts that teams gave out. And, I said what I've said a few times. I said during his rookie season, I said last year that the numbers don't bear out positive impact for Christie. The eye test sometimes does, and the potential there and the person certainly does, but the numbers haven't. And part of that is related to potentially skill set, talent. Is he being used correctly? Okay. But some of it is he hasn't played a lot. And, second round picks who are 19, 20, 21 coming to the league typically don't have huge impact. They are the exception to the rule to be able to come in and hang at the NBA level when you've been drafted in the 40s. It's one thing if you're the third pick, people expect it. In the 40s, less so. It's a lot to put on him to be good right away. Knecht has played 7 NBA games. I realize he's old for a rookie. He's still a rookie. He's still got a learning curve. It's still going to take a second for him to really hit. Even as the 17th pick in the draft, middle of the lottery or middle of the draft. Vincent hasn't played much. This bench is not nearly good enough right now. It could be maybe when Vanderbilt comes back, when Wood comes back, whatever. But for the time being, this bench isn't nearly productive enough. And even the energy of Cam Reddish is going to provide you energy, maybe a little bit of athleticism, some defensive length, some options perhaps on that side of the floor. It's not going to provide you any scoring.
No.
It's not going to provide you any ball movement. And
No.
It's like, we know what Cam Reddish is at this point in his career. He's a very limited player. And if you are putting yourself in a position where he's got to play because your other guys are worse, that's not a good sign.
No, and
Sorry,
I don't know.
Over.
Well, other than I guess, to your point, it's a 2-game sample size, but Cam has played in 2 games and he has not scored in either one of them.
He's not a 0 points per game guy, but he's not a good scorer. Like,
No, I don't. Yeah. I'm not saying that.
I realize we're sort of reinforcing the point. I'm just
right. Exactly. I'm not saying it to criticize Cam. Again, I thought he was one of the only guys on this team tonight that has any business being pleased with himself at all.
Right. I was just saying to your point that it's a small sample size. I'm like, he's not,
right. But he's not.
I'm not a Cam Reddish fan, but he's not 0 a night if he played 20 minutes a game.
But he's not a scorer either.
Right.
And
correct.
It does not help. It does not help their prospects in terms of what they do offensively with this group. Look, if Christian Wood beats Vando back, and we have not gotten a true health update on either one of them, but I think Redick may have to start considering, like, do I put Rui back off the bench just to bring a bona fide flat out scorer off the bench that you can run a little bit more through, as opposed to Wood, who, if nothing else, didn't seem as comfortable last year? Or maybe you try to reconfigure the bench where it runs a little more through Wood. Again, I would like to see Knecht get more minutes. I understand the instincts not to trust a rookie as much, but this is something they need, and he is really the only qualified candidate.
Yeah, and in the meantime, Russell's certainly his early shooting just has to get better. Just has to.
Yeah.
All right. So plenty to unpack. We'll obviously do a show tomorrow. No NBA games. Again, everybody get out there and vote. But we'll talk more about this as the Lakers set up to finish the trip in Memphis on Wednesday. Locked On Lakers on YouTube is where you can go hang out, talk to about 20. We're going to round up 26,000 subscribers and vent with them. We will see everyone tomorrow.